Becoming More Food Secure with Backyard Gardening, Module 2. This lecture provides an introduction to potential threats to a family's food security. There are many ways to become more food secure. We will go over some of the benefits to gardening and how gardening can support your food budget to help during lean times, or any time. The goal of this module is to go over how to reduce food insecurity by increasing the use of backyard gardening. By the end of this module, you should be able to define at least 2 threats to food security, identify 2 ways gardening can support your food access, and be able to estimate a garden's impact on your household economy. What are threats to your food security? Each of us might have particular threats to our unique situation, but there are some universal threats that affect all of us. Threats that we are seeing being played out in front of our very eyes. Let's go over some of the most common threats. Some of the most obvious threats involve supply chain issues such as disruptions in shipping and distribution channels. Often, this is due to government policies, whether foreign governments who export the goods or domestic governments who oversee the quality of the goods. Closer to home, loss of income for any number of reasons will understandably reduce an individual's buying power. Inflation also impacts how far your dollar stretches. When all 3 occur at once, it can mean big trouble for many families. Other threats include not only disruptions to shipping and distribution, but also manufacturing and production disruptions. These can be caused by ripple effects from political conflicts or severe weather like droughts, floods, or fires. Increasing medical costs can also become a burden, especially to vulnerable households. It might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes the way the food is produced can affect its availability. When certain types of seafood are selected over others, this can lead to overfishing. Overfishing can threaten the very existence of that species. Similarly, large monocrop farms that raise only 1 or 2 types of crops threaten availability of food through excessive use of pesticides and herbicides, which can degrade and poison the soil, affecting surrounding flora and fauna. Not only that, by only growing common or popular vegetables that we see in stores, we miss out on the huge variety of native plants. Farmers raise what gives high yields and what grows the fastest. Farmers also prioritize what the government subsidizes. There are hundreds of thousands of edible plants, yet the world eats only a tiny fraction of them. Mega farms are obliged to follow government regulations and are restrained by seed company trademarks and actually worsen plant diversity. If we exclusively rely on grocery stores for our food, we are dependent on what the government and the seed companies tell the farmer to grow. Access to healthcare and public health policies threaten food security because of costs or quarantines. And finally, the standard American diet also threatens food security because we rely on and consume highly processed foods that are the products of commercial overfishing and monocrop farm products, like corn and soybeans. You could say that our very lifestyles in America ultimately puts a great strain on our ability to feed ourselves. Our current models are not sustainable. This is why growing your own food, preserving it for future use, and even foraging for wild plants is so important for your food security. Supporting access through gardening. Once our ancestors discovered that they could intentionally cultivate specific species of plants for their consumption, they were able to abandon nomadic life and settle down in one area. Farms grew in size as people learned how to manage large pieces of land at one time. Even though farmers supplied crops for market, they did not have the capacity to distribute produce over great distances. Families, whether they were farmers or doctors or laypeople, would have what they called kitchen gardens, not too unlike backyard gardens we see today. A small parcel right outside of the kitchen door full of herbs and edible plants. In American history, wartime has always been good for popularizing home gardens. During the 2 world wars, the American government encouraged everyone to grow what they could. This would alleviate some of the supply burden on modern food producers, allowing the hardiest foods to be sent to the front lines in order to support the soldiers. As stated earlier, wartime can hinder supply chain and distribution. The American government encouraged citizens to provide for ourselves by growing and preserving our own food for our very survival. How does gardening support food access? It can increase the availability of fresh produce, increase one's use of plant foods, and provide the potential to try new or unusual plant foods. It can also increase one's understanding and appreciation of food production, which thereby will help reduce food waste. Recent research conducted by the National Gardening Association found that having a 600 square foot garden can save a family about $500 each year in food costs. Of course, the initial investment might be a little higher, so your return on investment might be lower the first year, but with practice and dedication, the savings and your confidence will grow. Gardens may be primitive or more advanced. At the most basic level, plants need only soil, water, warmth, and time. Another way to look at it. Currently, the average price of romaine lettuce from the grocery store, according to the USDA, is about $1.48 per pound. Contrary to that, the average price of a packet of romaine lettuce seeds is about $3.75. In a packet, there's about 250 seeds. Each seed produces one plant, and each packet yields about 75%. A packet of lettuce seeds could give you 187 heads of lettuce for $3.75 worth of seeds. With this information, could you estimate how much produce you eat and how much money you could potentially save if you only grew one vegetable? The following questions will see what you remember from what we have covered in this module. Answer these for yourself to see what you have learned. There are many threats to our food security. We have seen over the last few years how fragile our supply chains are and how delicate our food system. We can relieve some of those uncertainties by supplementing even a little by growing some of our own foods. In the following modules, we will discuss other benefits and uses of gardening as well as how to get started.